All right, so we are going to go over factoring some things that are not monic. And what monic means is that the a term is not 1. So the coefficient in front of x squared is not 1 anymore. When it is 1, it's called monic. When it's not monic, then it's not 1. So a is not 1, does not equal 1. All right, so what does that look like? Well, it looks like this example right here. So you've got 2x squared plus 18x plus 16. And the first thing you want to do anytime it says factor, anytime you're factoring anything, the first thing to do is always to look for a greatest common factor. And if there is one, you're going to divide out the greatest common factor, which is like distributing but backwards. All right, so undistribute. And in this example, you have a GCF, or greatest common factor, of a 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to undistribute the 2. We're going to take the 2 back out, which means to fill in the parentheses here, we're going to have to divide all these numbers by 2. So if I divide the first term by 2, I'll just be left with an x squared. If I divide 18x by 2, I would get 9x. And if I divide 16 by 2, I would get 8. All right, so we just divided everything by 2 because we did the distributive property backwards. When you distribute, you multiply. So when you undistribute, you divide. So 2 out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to factor what's left here. So numbers that multiply to 8 add to 9. That would be 1 and 8. So our final answer would be a 2 out front. And then we would then break this up even further. And we would break it up into an x plus 1 and an x plus 8. All right. So, yep, here's another one. So we got a GCF of 3 in this case. That's the first thing I should look for. I have a GCF of 3. So why don't we type that out? We got 3, and when I undistribute a 3, which means when I divide everything here by 3, I should get an x to the power of 2 minus 5x minus, test my knowledge, 24. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, again, this 3 out front stays, all right? It doesn't go anywhere. It just stays in our answer. And then we're going to factor what's left here. So numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 5, that's going to be negative 8 and a positive 3. All right. So anytime we divide out a GCF, we're going to look to continue factoring or continue breaking this down further. If there is an x squared as a leading term, it usually means that we can factor it again, or we can break this up into more things. So in this case, we have 3 different factors. We have 3, we have x minus 8, and x plus 3. And that's how we factor those guys. So let's clear objects. There we go. One more example like that, and then we're going to move on to the new stuff. Again, this should all be review stuff that you did in Algebra 1 and probably already did in Algebra 2. But we're going to divide everything by 2. All right, and again, our 2 stays out front here, and we need to find numbers multiply to 30, add to 13. That would be 3 and 10. All right, so that's going to factor into that. Again, make sure you're keeping your 2 written out here. All right, let's clear objects. Okay. All right, so sometimes you'll get examples where there is a number out front here of the x squared, and we would try to get rid of it by dividing out a greatest common factor, but you'll notice there is no greatest common factor. So you can't divide out a greatest common factor. So we kind of be stuck until now. So this is going to be called the slide and divide method. And the slide and divide method will need to be used when you cannot divide out a GCF and you're kind of stuck with this 3 here. All right. So the first thing we do is we do the slide part. And the slide part is sliding the first number to the last number. All right. So what we would be doing by sliding, we would multiply 3 times 2. And what's 3 times 2 get us? 3 times 2 gets us the number 6. So typically before, we would find numbers, that multiply to 2 and add to 7. Those don't exist. All right. So what I have to do is I have to change that number 2. I'm not going to find numbers that multiply to 2. I now am instead going to find numbers that multiply to 3 times 2, which is 6. All right. So what I'm looking to do here in the second steps where it says find factors of that number that add to b, we slid the 3 over to the 2, so the 3 is not there anymore. The 3 helped the 2 become a 6, all right? So we'll have this left, x squared plus 7x plus 6. That is something that you can factor, all right? So we can factor that. So in step 3, we're going to do that. We're going to find numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 7. That is 1 and 6. All right, factored it. But that's not our answer. Because if I multiplied these back together with the box method, I surely would not get this as my answer. So there's more things that I have to do then. What I do next, I do the divide portion. All right. So that 3 that we slid over is going to come back into our answer here. And where it's going to come back is it's going to divide the 1 and the 6. All right. So whatever number was in front here, so in this case it was a 3, is going to go and it's going to divide by these numbers in our factors. All right. So we have x plus 1/3, and we now have x plus 6/3. All right, step 5, we're going to simplify our fractions. You can't simplify 1/3. All right, it's already simplified, so don't do anything. 6 over 3 does simplify. 6 divided by 3 is the number 2. All right. We're almost done, right? When we factor, we don't really want to have fractions. And again, if I checked this by doing the box method, I still wouldn't get my original answer. That's because the last thing we have to do is bring the bottoms up. If there are any bottoms, which are denominators, we're going to bring them up. And by bringing them up, we're going to bring them right out in front of the x in the factor. So in this case, my 3 was on the bottom, so my 3 is going to go bottom up, come up with my x. I still have my 1 left here in this factor. So all I did was slide the 3 out in front of the x. And then this one didn't have any bottoms, so it doesn't do anything. All right, and so my final answer would be 3x plus 1 and x plus 2. Now, if you do the box method with those two factors, you will get the 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. All right, so that's called slide and divide, and it's going to take some practice. All right, so watch this next example again. What in the world? Where's my example of slide and divide? There we go. All right, so here's a slide and divide example. Again, I would be looking for a GCF of a 2. I would try to divide everything by 2. You can't divide everything by 2 because these two numbers are even, so that means that we now are going to have to do the slide and divide method. All right, first thing is slide. 2 times 15 is 30. So the new number that we are going to try and find factors of is a 30. And again, we slid that 2 over, so this 2 is not here anymore. So we slid it over and multiplied it with a 30. Now we're factoring. These are things that you should be great at. Factors of 30 that add to 11, 6 and 5. All right, so that was the slide. So we'll write that slide. Now it's time for the divide. And what do we divide by? We divide by what we slid with. We slid the 2 over here. So we're going to bring the 2 back. The 2 is going to come back, and it's going to divide these two factors. Divide 2. All right. So slide, divide. There's an extra step in here that's not really in the name, slide and divide, bottoms up. But it is to simplify. So we're going to simplify our fractions here. And this is very important. And you have to fully simplify your fractions or else your answer won't be correct. So in this case, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I will simplify that to x plus 3. 5 over 2 doesn't simplify. So that's going to stay. And then my last step is to bring the bottoms up. Bottoms up. X plus 3 doesn't have a bottom. This one does. The 2 is going to slide or go from the bottom to the top, and it's going to slide right there in front of the x. And so that's going to be my final answer, 2x plus 5 and x plus 3. Do the box method, check your work. You should get your original question. All right. Going to go over, let's try to do one more here. Ooh, some large numbers. Nice. Let's do it. All right, so again, first things first, there's a 4 out front. You're going to try to divide everything by 4 to get rid of that 4. That's not going to work in this case, so we cannot do that. We have to do the slide and divide method. So we're going to slide. 4 times 30 is 120. All right, and we slid the 4, so the 4 is gone now. For now, it's gone. All right, and we are factoring this. How fun. So we're going to look for factors of 120 that add to 29. Not my favorite thing to do, but if you need help finding factors of 120, and I would kind of suggest this if you have a number this large, turn your calculator on, go to y equals, and whatever the number is, so in this case it's 120. I want to click 120 divided by x in there for y, and then I'm going to go to the table. So I'm going to hit the second button, hit the graph button. This is going to give me a list of all of the factors of 120. I don't really need to look in the negatives because I'm adding to make a positive 29, so I know both my numbers should be positives. And so I'll just scroll down through this list until I find factors that add to 29, and here they are, 5 and 24. All right, so I don't need my calculator anymore. It helps me find 5 and 24. So I got x plus 5, x plus 24. So we did slide. Now we're going to do divide. Divide by whatever our a was. So our a is a 4. So we're going to divide by 4. Okay, now we have to fully simplify. You cannot simplify x plus 5 fourths. All right, so that's going to stay as x plus 5 fourths. 5 fourths. You can simplify 24 divided by 4. It is 6. All right, and then let's get this calculator off here. No. And then the last thing we're going to do is we are going to bring the bottoms up. All right, so this 4 down here is in the bottom, so we're going to bring it up in that factor. So we're going to bring it out front of the 4, or out front of the x. So we got a 4x plus 5 now. And our second factor is an x plus 6 that weren't any bottoms. And that is going to be your final answer. Again, you can use the box method, double check your work, make sure that you get back to your original when you multiply them together. And this should be good. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover in this video. I'm not going to go over this whole example, but what you would want to do is you would want to first find a GCF. Well, the GCF isn't 24, but if you notice, everything in this example is even. So the first thing you would want to do is divide out your 2. All right, so divide out your GCF of a 2. You're still going to have to do slide and divide with what's there. So you have to do 12 times negative 12. You're just going to keep this 2 out front of your final answer. But at least dividing out a 2 is going to make these numbers smaller for your slide and divide, so they're not going to be quite as difficult. All right, so if you want to, I would like for you now take a moment and go ahead and try to do your slide and divide for this. So for the 12x squared plus 7x minus 12, come up with an answer, and then I'll go over that in a little bit on this video. All right, so if we do slide and divide, we're going to get negative 144, and we're going to try to make them add to 7. All right, so what multiplies to negative 144 adds to 7? If you need to use your calculator, you can. Negative 144 divided by x, and we're looking for them to add to 7. So it looks like it's going to be negative 9, positive 16. So let's write over here. Negative 9, positive 17. Remember, I still have this 2 out front of my answer. So I did the slide. Now I'm going to do the divide. So divide by whatever number was a. And again, when we're doing the slide and divide, our a is actually 12. Sorry for that random line across the screen here. Let's erase it. All right, so now we got 12. We're going to fully simplify each fraction. All right, so negative 9 twelfths will simplify to 3 fourths. That is an important step. 17 over 12 doesn't simplify. Or does it? That doesn't simplify. Why did I put 17? My answer was 16. Sorry, this was a 16. You guys are probably wondering what the heck's going on. All right, so I got 16 over 12. That does also simplify. 16 over 12, I can divide them both by 4, so that's going to be 4 thirds. And then we're going to bring our bottoms up in each factor. So we got a 4x minus 3. And in this case, the 3 is going to come out front. It's going to be a 3x minus 4. Wow. That's a mess. All right, but that should be how it factors. So if you multiply these two together using box, you should get 12x squared plus 7x minus 144. Or sorry, minus 12. And then when you multiply the two back in, you should go back to your original question there. So thank you for watching.